97 episodes, 5 seasons, over 100 total leaps, 2 unforgettable stars. The original Quantum Leap ran from March 26, 1989 until May 5, 1993. We followed the iconic Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell as Dr. Sam Beckett, who traveled through time, righting wrongs, and his holographic cigar-smoking sidekick, Al. The anthology series touched on all genres of storytelling, from comedy, action, romance, thriller, horror, and everything in between. Sam was an Air Force test pilot, numerous athletes, lawyers, a mother, and a soon-to-be mother. He was a hairdresser, a mobster, a con man, a psych patient, a rape victim, a college student, a housewife. He was once himself, and he was once his own ancestor. He was a child. He was even a chimp. Dr. Sam Beckett taught us to walk a day in the life of a stranger. He taught us about acceptance and understanding, about righting wrongs in the world around us. Even after the last episode, Mirror Image, aired for the first time, the series continued in syndication, as well as releases on Laserdisc and VHS formats, and then later DVDs, Blu-rays, and streaming. There were also 18 novels, 13 comic books, and various reference books that continued the journey of Sam and Al. Over the years, there were many false starts and continuations, revivals, or reboots, and finally, in 2022, the next iteration of Quantum Leap became a reality. With 2 seasons and 31 episodes currently under its belt, the 2022 series follows a new leaper, Dr. Ben Song, who travels through time, righting wrongs. He is joined by the team of Addison, his hologram and fiancé, Magic, one of Sam's hosts who restarted and now runs the project, his best friend and programmer Ian, and head of security Jen. While Season 3 has not been confirmed, we are hopeful that the current show will get the opportunity to continue telling amazing stories, and that the Quantum Leap franchise as a whole can prosper and grow. There are many tales left to tell, many shoes left to walk in, many leaps left to take. Let's celebrate 35 years of Quantum Leap.
Hey guys, this is Dave and Stacie from Corn Productions Deep Dive TV Podcast. If you're watching this during the course of our podcast, you've already heard from us, but otherwise you might also be listening to this separately because we're going to be doing this as a separate project as well. First of all, I'd like to thank all the people who contributed. Deborah Pratt, the amazing Deborah Pratt. She's had some good things to say. All right, Stacie, 35 years of Quantum Leap.
We're celebrating 35 years that Quantum Leap has been in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Genesis aired on March 26, 1989, and ran for 5 years, right? So my history with Quantum Leap, I'll tell you, I was not watching Genesis on March 26, 1989. I would have been 6 years old at that time.
Yes.
So it was probably a couple years before I discovered Quantum Leap.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember what my first episode was, but I feel like it had to have been sometime like season 4 or 5 that I discovered the series. And probably only saw a handful of episodes when they originally aired.
Right.
But I definitely know after the series ended, like immediately after, when the show was airing every day on USA Network, I was watching it then.
Mm-hmm.
I had, when I meant to bring it here, but I don't have it in front of me, it's upstairs, the Quantum Leap A to Z book.
Yes.
I've had that since I was
We've
a child.
That many times.
Quantum Leap A to Z, written by Julie Barrett, one of the first reference books for Quantum Leap. And I had many of the novels that were coming out around the same time, and I was reading those. But I had my A to Z book, and I have notes in the book of when episodes were airing on USA.
Mm-hmm.
So I was writing, like, the dates on each episode. So I'd make sure I'd hit the ones that I love, my favorite episodes. So I was watching the show pretty regularly at that point, like rewatching episodes, watching full playthroughs over and over. And I do remember the first time I saw Genesis.
Okay.
It was sometime after the series ended.
Mm-hmm.
and I was on USA, and the last episode aired, Mirror Image. And it was not my first time seeing Mirror Image, so I've already cycled through the series a couple times.
Right.
You know, catching different episodes, of course, and making sure certain ones I loved. And I very distinctly remember I was excited because Mirror Image ended, and that meant the pilot was next, the first episode, which I knew I had never seen. And I was like, I'm so excited to go back and watch the first episode because I know I haven't seen that one before, even though I've seen other episodes multiple times.
Mm-hmm. And
then I remember very clearly sitting in my childhood bedroom because, you know, I had a TV in my room. Look where that gets you. And I remember tuning in to watch the first episode for the first time after, you know, the series has ended. And I remember thinking, oh, that's not a great episode. That seems kind of silly and boring and pointless.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, looking at it now, you can have a new appreciation for the fact that this is where it started.
This is where it all began.
Right? And if you watch our full podcast about Genesis, which is releasing simultaneously with this, so it is available on YouTube if you are already in that video, or if you're watching this separate, you can go back and find the full video of Genesis, where we talk in a lot of detail about that episode.
Yes, and surprisingly enough, it did not end up 3 hours.
I know, right? We're getting better at this.
I guess so. You know, we got a lot more concise.
So tell me about your history with the series as a kid.
I actually know the first episode of Quantum Leap that I saw, and It's a Wonderful Leap.
Okay.
And I was watching it with my parents and my Uncle Gary. And I was like totally confused watching this episode. I'm like asking questions like, what the heck is going on here? Like, why is Al moving through things? And like, I was totally confused watching the episode. But I fell in love with the series. Like, and I had actually managed to catch some, what do you call those things? Where they, I can't remember I can't remember the actual thing. Marathon. Like, they had Quantum Leap marathons on USA.
Yeah.
And this was well before the series was over. And I watched many of those marathons. I didn't catch every episode. I definitely watched some of those episodes when the DVDs came out. I finally actually managed to catch every single episode. Right. But, yeah, so I remember watching The Leap Home. And it in its original form, like where it was the full movie version.
Yeah.
That USA aired it like that. And that was pretty amazing. But yeah, I was definitely, by the time season 5 aired, I had watched quite a few Quantum Leap episodes, but there were plenty that I had not watched. And I remember reading the books. I remember actually being sick and staying home from school one day. My mom actually bringing me the first Quantum Leap book that I think it was from a book fair or something along those lines. So I read the novels, including Foreknowledge by Christopher Del Filippis.
Which we met.
Yes, we did. And pronunciation, once again, not my greatest strong suit. Words, generally, not my greatest strong suit. But yeah, I remember reading that novel. And only recently making the connection. Like, oh, wait. The Quantum Leap podcast has the guy who wrote Foreknowledge in it? So yeah, that was pretty amazing. It's been an amazing 35 years. I love the show way back when. I was really bummed when the series ended. And the way that series ended, oh man. See, I was okay with the episode for the most part, but then we got to that stupid title card, and I'm like, you're leaving it there? And this was very traumatizing for a 12, 13-year-old at the time. And it just sat in my heart for years. I was hoping that I could convince NBC to renew the series, because we started doing ratings at the time, like at the end. And I'm like, hey, if you say you've watched Quantum Leap a lot, then maybe they'll bring it back. And of course, that didn't work. But as strategy.
Well, it worked, to get us season 5. I mean, I wasn't involved in any of that, but I knew there was, all those writing campaigns. Started back then in the early 90s. And it did work to get us as much of it as we did end up getting.
Yes, and I definitely cherish everything that we got. We've certainly seen plenty of series that went on way too long and flamed out. Quantum Leap never had that.
Yeah.
I mean, it did get weird
Some
in season 5.
Some of my favorite episodes are in season 5.
Right.
In fact, my favorite episodes are trilogy.
Right.
My favorite episode is 3 episodes, if that tells you anything about me.
Yeah.
That it's got to be a 3-part arc that I call my favorite. What's your favorite, if you had to pick one?
Well, I had mentioned that I'm really fond of Last Dance of Execution because I was always drawn to the darker, more dramatic episodes. And beyond that, I would say like the obvious episodes like MIA.
The classic, iconic episodes.
Yeah. Future Boy is pretty up there in my mind. And and I said, when we got to see Scott Bakula, when we went to the Connector to see him, and we got his autograph and managed to talk to him, I told him that he was one of my childhood heroes because he absolutely was. Like, I don't have many. Like, I Patrick Stewart, Scott Bakula, and there's a hockey player called Kevin Dineen that used to play for the Whalers back in the day. But that's basically it. So it was incredible when we went to see him. And I was definitely following Scott Bakula's career after the series ended. He didn't really do much for a while. He was in like a TV movie. He was in Lord of Illusions. Necessary Roughness, I think, came out when he was in Quantum Leap. And then eventually he got another sci-fi series and got to be a captain in Star Trek Enterprise and be one of those captains. So he's had multiple iconic roles.
Yeah.
And Dean Stockwell, amazing character actor.
Yeah. I was, of course, very excited to see Dean Stockwell in The Langoliers.
Yes.
Which I cite often as being my favorite Stephen King adaptation for film. People think I'm crazy because it is one of the worst films. But I just love that story. And probably because Dean was in it was the reason I loved that movie so much.
So I think that kind of falls into the category of like B movie territory. Like, it's not actually objectively good, but it's like one of those movies you watch because it's kind of so bad.
I just always loved it, and I love seeing Dean in it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked favorite episodes.
Yeah.
Least favorite?
Oh, okay.
Quantum Leap episode?
That one's
original series?
That one's actually a little easier to answer. I would probably say Genesis is up there. I think that might be one of the weaker episodes of the series, which is actually a good thing in my mind, that the pilot episode is one of the weaker episodes. But, we talked about Heart of a Champion. I mean, like, I'm not a big wrestling fan, and I think that they kind of undermined the story with some of the goofy stuff that they were doing during that episode with Tyler Funk.
Yeah.
And, I mentioned many times that I was not a big fan of A Portrait for Troyan.
Sorry, Deborah.
Yes. You're great as Ziggy, but maybe not necessarily as that character, Troyan. In fact, almost every actor in that episode was bad.
I feel like I've seen you say like that's just a really unbelievable story and kind of out of context.
Well, it's very Scooby-Doo-ish.
Yeah.
And like the plot is like impossible to pull off. Like if you really think about it for anybody. I mean, granted, a lot of episodes are like that, but given the fact that and I also don't like gothic horror. That's one of the reasons why I was not particularly fond of that episode. How about for yourself?
Well, I was thinking about this, and I feel like the ones I like least are probably the ones that are least memorable for me, so they're not going to come to my head. But I pulled out two that I'd probably put in my bottom grouping. Played Against Seymour. Okay. I was never gave a care about that episode.
It's funny because when I was a kid, I didn't like that episode when I saw it. I only gained an appreciation for it in my later years, fairly recently when I covered that episode again because of all the Casablanca references and, being a student of film. And, I appreciate it for those reasons. But go on.
And the other one that I came to my head when I was trying to think of which episodes do I really not like. The other one I thought of was Dreams.
Okay, I could see that.
In that episode, it was forgettable for me. Every time I'd come around to that, I'd be like, wait, which episode is this? Like, what's going on here?
It really disturbed me as a kid.
It was disturbing. I mean, I love horror.
Yeah.
So I'm not, like, scared by, like, the creepiness of an episode. I was watching horror movies probably before I discovered Quantum Leap, to be perfectly honest, when I was 6 years old. Because, it was the 80s.
Right. I mean, I watched Die Hard as a kid. I can't imagine, like, letting...
So, it's not like the episode scared me, but it was creepy in a weird way. That, like, just didn't... I was like, okay, that's a thing. Like, I don't need to see that again.
Right.
So, yeah, that's probably close to the bottom for me.
All right. We have anything else to say, I think?
Well, I think they've probably heard enough of us rambling.
Yes.
So why don't we go ahead and we're going to play for you some similar stories from our friends in the Quantum Leap community.
Yes.
So we have some special guests. We're going to let you hear from them what they have to say, their memories of Quantum Leap, including a very special clip from Deborah Pratt herself discussing the invention of Quantum Leap.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure you check out all of their links and their projects and their shows and all of their things, including warrior1world.com for Deborah. She will mention that again in her clip. And keep celebrating Quantum Leap.
Yeah, let's make it another 35 years.
If you haven't seen the Revival series yet,
yes,
which I'm sure there's some people here who haven't, I am going to make a little pitch for it. It is not the same.
It definitely is
not the same. Dean is gone.
Yes.
He's not with us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Scott does not want to make an appearance in the new series.
He has said that multiple
times.
Sucks
as a fan, but you know what? That's his prerogative, and
we
have to accept it.
When he initially said that, I was disappointed, but I also said that I respected his decision. You know, if he doesn't want to return to that character, that is totally his right.
Right.
And I respect it.
So we watched this new series.
Yep.
We covered the new series.
We did.
Every episode in our podcast, so you can go see those.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people didn't want to give the new series a chance and have not watched it yet.
Yeah.
Other people watched 1 or 2 episodes, said, nah, it's not for me, it's not the same, and quit. So I'm going to speak to you. Give it another shot. Because honestly, both of us said the pilot episode is the weakest of the entire series.
It absolutely
so if that's all you watched, keep going. Give it a chance. We mentioned this during our Genesis podcast, which you just heard if you're watching this in that context. In episode 2, we get a direct reference back to Genesis. We have a returning character from Genesis, sort of, kind of, which is super cool that those connections exist. It's not a reboot. It's a revival. It's a continuation of the world of Quantum Leap. Yes, it's different. Yes, the whole setup is different. We spend half our time in the project, half our time in the leap. It's a little rough in the beginning, but they get a lot better at balancing that. And by the time we got to the end of season 2, which is where we're at right now in real world time, it's great. I love it. I feel like they did such a great job doing fan service to the fans of the original series, as well as, cultivating this new culture of Quantum Leap.
Absolutely.
And so if you haven't checked it out, or if you gave up in one of the early episodes, I do highly recommend you go watch the show. 2 seasons are available on Peacock, 31 episodes, and we are currently waiting to hear if there's going to be a season 3. If you want there to be a season 3, which I hope everybody who is celebrating 35 years of Quantum Leap wants Quantum Leap to continue, so that we can continue to grow even past this series.
Yes, Deborah Pratt, as we're going to see her say, she still wants that movie with Sammy Joe and Scott Bakula. If it's canceled, it's quite a bit harder for that to ever come to pass.
Right. So if you want Quantum Leap to continue, we need this series, the 2022 revival, to continue. So let NBC know that you want season 3. They are in the decision-making process right now. They're going to decide in April, and then they're going to let us know in May at the upfront. So we're running out of time to let them know. So let them know that you want to see it. Go binge those episodes if you haven't seen them, or if you have, go watch them all again because they're great. And that's just my bit for the revival. I know not everybody loves it, but I'm going to quote this. I've quoted this before. I'll use Al's language from the Dr. Ruth episode. I love Quantum Leap Revival differently than I love the original. The same way that, Al realized he loves Tina differently than he loved Beth.
Yes.
And Beth, by the way, spoiler alert, is in the revival.
She is.
Go check it out.
More episodes than she was ever in the original series.
Yeah, she's in several episodes. So it is worth watching, I promise. You might not love it the same, but I promise you it's worth watching. So give it a shot.
All right. Do we have anything else to say?
And I just hope that, we can continue more Quantum Leap.
Absolutely.
This discussion has carried on 35 years. 33 of those years was before the revival came.
Right.
The conversation was still going. There's still all of these amazing, the Quantum Leap podcast, Al's Place fan community, all of these great places and resources and books like Matt Dale's Beyond the Mirror Image book series, which the first edition of that came out long before the revival.
Right, and there's some comic books as well.
Right, of course. Quantum Leap hasn't gone anywhere.
Nope. There's even there was a fan film, A Leap for Diana.
A Leap to Die For.
Yeah. That had Sam leaping in to save Princess Diane or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And actually Deborah Pratt was in that.
She was,
yeah,
yes.
As Ziggy.
So my point is just like, I hope that as a fandom, we continue to grow and enjoy all of these clips we're about to show you. Thank you for hanging out with us and celebrating 35 years of Quantum Leap. And we're so excited to see what comes in the future.
Absolutely. And then after all those clips play, you can still continue to listen to us babble about the second half of Genesis. All right. So we're going to leave it there because I don't think I'll give my big selling point about our show because you're...
But there it is.
Oh, yeah.
So go check out our playlists if you happen to be new to us.
Yeah.
And we have lots of great stuff there.
Yeah. All right. So this is Dave and Stacie from Corn Productions signing off.
Hello, Dave and Susie. This is Deborah Pratt. I am sending you this video per your request. I cannot believe it has been 35 years since Quantum Leap came on the air. And first and foremost, I want to say to the fans, thank you very, very much for your support over all these years, for your love, for your letters, for your passion. I think that you have given us the rare honor of being the heart of a fan base. Okay, so the question that you asked me was, where did the concept of Quantum Leap come from? And I think it best describes my story of how it fell together in my mind conceptually, and then how the pilot was built and how the show became what it is then and what it is today. So we were reading a book, we being me. I was reading a book called A Short History of Time by Stephen Hawking. And I'm a nerd, bottom line, it's heavy science fact, quantum physics. It was a gift from a writer. Her name was Deborah Pratt, I believe. Anyway, so I'm reading this book and I come across this section that talked about quantum leaping and that a quark can be in one place at any distance from another quark and they can trade places. And I thought that was an incredible idea and an incredible opportunity to create a story about time travel. I'd been wanting to do an anthology for a long time. I think my first remembrance of television, so this was back in the late 50s, early 60s, I was maybe 10. And my favorite show on television was the Loretta Young Show. It had been on the air, I found out, since 1953. But Loretta Young produced it. She was the star of it. And every week she would come out in these beautiful dresses and she would talk to the audience. And then she would go back through the door, come out through this door, and then talk to the audience and answer a question, I believe, from a letter that fans had sent her. And she would go in and then she would become that character. And I thought, I wonder how we could do this using this principle of quarks. The fact that you could actually switch places with someone. So I'm reading further into the book and it says Einstein's theory of relativity defines time and space as limited. So that means three people talking in a room, you as a leaper in time could never just appear as a fourth person in the room because time and space is limited. You would have to knock somebody out or trade places with them. So I thought, okay, where would they go? But most important, would the people in the room still see the person that was standing there? And I just determined that, yes, because we project who we are. So there's this energy that's in front of us. And the people around you And then I made up the idea that except for children under 5 and animals would know that you were not who you were. You were the leaper. Anyway, so the leaper would leap in and everyone would see them as who they are. So then the question was, how would we, the audience, do it? And that was a Brandon Tartikoff question that was asked when we went in to pitch the show. So we came up with the idea that they could see themselves in the mirror. They could see, not themselves, they could see who they leapt into in the mirror. And then I remember when we pitched it to Carey McCluggage, and he liked it. He got it. The visionaries of the world that were are so few and far between now. And he sent us on to Brandon Tartikoff, God rest his soul. And Brandon heard the pitch that this guy is a scientist and a physicist. He leaps into, he's created a time machine and he leaps into another time and can't get back. And then Don came up with the idea that it should be a military-owned piece of technology. And he wonderfully said, and he's got a hologram that travels with him. This was an idea I absolutely loved. So Dean would represent this military admiral, Calavici, and he would be our voice in the present, because we would be stuck in the past once Scott Bakula, who was a dream actor to write for, to work with, everything that Scott was, we used. I loved going to Scott's dressing room and saying, what did you do as a kid? He played baseball, basketball. He was incredibly athletic. I had seen some of his work on Broadway, and his ability to sing and dance inspired me to write a number of episodes that really exploded, I think, off the screen. But most important, it was this anthology of storytelling. And what I knew based on, at the time, I think it was Steven Spielberg had created a show called Amazing Stories, and it didn't do well. And I said, that's because you need somebody to what they call bookend it. So you would have Rod Serling or Boris Karloff, but the first one that ever did it was Loretta Young. It was a woman. I have always wanted a woman leaper. I think that's why I created the Easter egg of Sammy Joe being in the future, trying to bring him home, and built that into the show. I'm still working on that as a movie. I haven't given up. I do want to bring Scott home. That was another huge argument that I had with Don and the studio and the network, saying, don't bring him home, because as long as he's out there, the fans will stay with us. And you did. You absolutely stayed with us. What else can I tell you? The stories were easy. It became a show that could tell any story at any time. Don, because of budgetary constraints of the show, had made the rule up that he could only leap within his own lifetime. And I found a way to bend around that, where he could leap genetically, which is why we did one show that was supposed to be my show, but I had to jump on another show. And I can't remember who wrote it. Was it Chris Rupenthal? Where he leapt into his grandfather. So that was, a set of the lore that I had added. It's a wonderful show. It could never go out of fashion. I believe, and will say 1,000 times, it has the capability to, like Star Trek, have 9 spin-offs and 9 motion pictures and still keep going and keep growing, because Quantum Leap has what I always tell to every writer and everyone that will listen, the 4 H's. It has heart, it has hope, it has history, it has humor, but truthfully, it has 5. It has humanity. And what we can do that no other show can do is we can leap Sam and now leap Ben into the life of someone else's shoes. It was always designed to walk in someone else's shoes. The first time I wrote him as a black man, I got big time pushback from the network, from the studio, from Don, saying that's a year 3 thing. I went, no, it isn't. And we did it in the first season, and it put us on the map. And I got to deal with racism in a safe place because people could think, oh, that happened long ago. And though it's still going on today, it allowed for a conversation to happen, an art that we in America have lost the ability to do. I think that humanity, the chance to walk in the shoes of a woman or the high heels of a woman and deal with sexism. And what I loved about Scott doing that was that he embodied that character with all the extra parts and what it was like to wear a girdle and sit on a cold chair, stockings and sit on a cold chair. He said he had new respect for women. I wrote him as a young pregnant teenager. And also, I want to talk about the fact that, and we still are getting letters on the new series, and thank you all for coming, of people who were so moved by the show and so affected by the show, where each episode seemed to touch a group of people. And if every letter represents 20,000 letters, I am beyond grateful that you pick up a pen and you write, or you send in, now these days you send an email to Universal Studios or NBC network, and you tell them that we need this show. Now then more than ever, we need this show. So I'm grateful to have been able to create something so special, and to have, you know, a Don Belisario who represented all the people that get things like that done. I'd only created one other show, and it had gotten squashed by the writer's strike back in '87. And then when I brought him Quantum Leap in '88, it was decided that to be seen and be heard, it needed his face up front. I regret that I didn't get a credit, but everybody that knows I co-created this show, and I'm proud of it. And we'll take it as far as the franchise will go if given the opportunity. In the interim, please join me at Warrior One, warrior1world.com. It's my next franchise, and it has hope as well for a future, and for all the generations, the young people in this generation who question, can they make it in this world? It's about choosing courage. It's about being fearless. It's about being willing to learn what it takes to survive. So I'm really proud of Warrior One and the Vision Quest series. But I think my heart, the core of my heart, will always be the creation and the ideas of Quantum Leap. I hope we go on forever. And I know if we do, it's because of you. And come back and see us. And when I get to do the story, to bring Scott home, or come play with us. Deborah Pratt, it's a pleasure as always. And thank you.
Hi, I'm Carla, and I'm a fan of Quantum Leap as well. Although I haven't really watched the original series since it first aired, so I got a bit of catching up to do. But I do remember that I loved it, and I always enjoyed watching it with my parents. I'd watch it before bed. And when I heard that there was a newer series coming out, I was so excited, and I'm really, really glad that it's not a reboot, that it's continuing the stories on. I really like that. And Magic is one of my favorite characters, and so was Ian. I like Ian as well. And yeah, I really hope that it continues, because the stories are really good. I love the legends behind it, and the whole big storyline through it, the mystery, and all the different stuff that they added to it. I really hope that it continues for another season or more, but if it doesn't, that's okay too, because I at least enjoyed the ride.
Hello Leapers, and welcome back to, well, I guess this isn't the Quantum Leap podcast, but these are Quantum Leap podcast peeps on the Quantum Leap Rewatch podcast with Stacie and Dave. We were asked to talk a little bit about Quantum Leap, and that's what me and Brian Green like to do, so we're here doing it. Hey, Brian, how you doing?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I was kind of sad because, like, part of our trip to New York on the train, we went via, North Dakota. Didn't get to see you.
Well, that's not where I live. Keep guessing.
Okay. I'll keep working on it. One of these times, I'm gonna figure it out.
It's so
all right.
close.
It's so close. So close. Yet so far. But yeah, traveling on. That's what we're doing. And Brian, let's talk a little bit about the 35th anniversary of Quantum Leap and Al's Place in particular. Many people know you, some might not. Me, first-time listeners meeting you. This is Brian Green. He's awesome. He runs Al's Place, the premier Quantum Leap website, the best Quantum Leap website of all time. I have to say.
Thank you.
And so what made you do it? What inspired you? How do you keep going after all these years? And so much work you put into it. Tell me everything about Al's Place in 5 minutes or less.
I don't know if I can do that, but I'm going to try. Okay, so it started in 2000. I was bored. I had a website. The internet was new. The computers were new. So I played with it. And I liked Quantum Leap.
I did that when the internet came around too. And I'm still doing it. So that's good.
Well, yeah. So yeah, I just made this little, I had my own personal website. I put a little Quantum Leap section on it. And, search engines picked it up and people started coming to that. And it wasn't just my sister looking at it. So I moved it to, its own server on, whatever it was at the time. But
GeoCities or something?
It was on GeoCities. We actually moved it to, our own URL, quantumleap-alsplace.com.
Yeah. How'd you pick that one?
In 2002. Do it.
How did you pick that one? Was Quantum Leap already taken?
Quantum Leap was already taken. And I knew I wanted Quantum Leap in the title. I know it's kind of long, but yeah, it's
pretty good one.
It's been that way ever since. It's been about 24 years, and it's just built and built and built. A lot of people helped build it. Lots of fans, lots of, even stars of the show, crew, producers, everybody has sent me things over the years, and I just put it out there for everybody. It's been a lot of fun. Keeping it going has been a challenge at times. Back in 2009, I had my son, and so for about 10 years, the show was off. There was no new news really, so there wasn't a lot going on, and it's hard to raise a son when you're doing the website every 5 minutes. But now he's older and I can do a lot more. So thank goodness the timing worked out for the new series. It's been a lot of fun doing that. I created a whole new subsection of the site, kind of mirroring the original, but a little more tech savvy for the new series. And it's been a lot of fun. On Tuesday, if you're probably watching this on the 35th anniversary. So
Happy anniversary!
You will see our new video library for that I've been building over the last couple of months. Had a fan offer to help out with some videos, so there's a lot of new stuff coming. I've categorized just about every interview I could find, including Quantum Leap podcast. So they're all, listed under the name of the actor or the producer or whatever. So you'll be able to see that. And I don't know, it's just been a lot of fun. Thanks to everybody. We got new forums open that work really great. And that also, some of the videos, not to infringe on copyrights, but YouTube sometimes flags things they shouldn't flag. And our new forums will let us post videos just like YouTube without that restriction. So there's going to be a lot of stuff on there that you may not be able to see on YouTube. Not that we're trying to break copyright law, but small clips nobody cares about. So enjoy.
Yeah. I think those are more to promote the show and fandom, and the deeper people can dive, the more they get into the fandom and the more they'll watch the show. So it's just promotion.
Oh yeah, that's all I ever wanted to do.
Yeah, it's never posting full episodes and taking away from anything.
We're not doing anything like that.
No,
so.
we're just the fan community supporting them, I think. That's how I look at it. But
Yep,
algorithms don't understand the human experience.
exactly. Like, for instance, Justice in the original series, YouTube won't let me put the leap into that on there because
Really?
it depicts, KKK members.
Mhm.
But that's not what the episode is really about. It's not promoting the KKK. It's the opposite. But YouTube won't let me put that on there. So it is linked into our forum site in the media
Mhm.
section. So you can still play it, just like YouTube.
Very cool. Very cool. And I think Stacie also wanted me to talk about a little bit about the podcast and my experience with Quantum
Quantum
Leap.
Leap podcast, after show. How'd you get started on Quantum Leap podcast?
I think a lot of people know the stories, but if you don't know who I am, I'm Albie. I pretty much made the Quantum Leap podcast. The first host was me and my former partner, Heather. And we did up until, I think, Rebel Without a Clue. And but I was just there was nothing out there Quantum Leap podcast related, and I wanted to listen to a Quantum Leap podcast, and I was a fledgling podcaster, and her and I had something under our belt. It was the Terra Nova podcast, and that really hit. Like when we did it, like we were the only ones doing it, so we were able to build up a quick and dirty fan community, and everybody wanted to help. And then we kind of transitioned that into Quantum Leap podcast when Terra Nova got canceled, and we were looking for something, and I wanted Quantum Leap. So, and it has been like one of the best fan online experiences because I just met so many cool friends like you, Brian.
Yeah.
And you're all the way in Colorado.
There's a C in it. We're in there.
California.
Ew.
Okay, I'll figure it out. But yeah, I met so many friends through Quantum Leap and shared so many different things with different people. And I think most of the friends I have right now I wouldn't have met if I didn't do the podcast. So the podcast has been like a really good gift. And we get to interview all the people, if you haven't heard of our show, go back and go to the website. I think it's quantumleappodcast.com. And of course, search Quantum Leap Podcast on YouTube and we'll show up. We're the one with the blue hockey puck, representing the new show. And we have interviews with everyone from Scott Bakula to Raymond Lee and everyone in between. We have editors. We have producers, directors, writers, guest stars. We got under 5-line people. I love doing interviews with people that had less than 5 lines in an episode because you talk to them for 2 hours and find out all the dirt and all the skinny that happened on the set that week for that episode. And it really takes you back. And we have great episodes from the classic series. I try to get one guest star at least from each episode. And we even talked to Don Belisario. And of course, all of us, all the time we talk to Deborah because she's such a great supporter of the show and the heart of Quantum Leap. And it's just a fun place to hang out, and it's all inclusive, and I just love doing it. And then Brian, you came aboard pretty much right away when we started the after show. You were one of the first people I reached out to because I really always look up to you and admire you for all the hard work you did on your website. And it's been great having you on the after show. And you're also doing another podcast too, right, with Damon?
Yeah, the Fandom Entanglement Quantum Leap podcast. Started doing that with them. I've known those guys since the early days of Quantum Leap. MJ doing the virtual season, and Damon and Mike met them on the forums. Just been friends for 20 plus years now. So we got together, and he's he had his own podcast. So I joined in with him, and I love doing it with you guys too. And it's been pretty cool. Usually I'm like a behind the scenes type of guy. But it's
well,
been a lot of fun.
You got the face. You got the face. You got the voice. So people love you. So I think this might be one of your callings. You have many, but 35 years of Quantum Leap. What is your takeaway reflection? Like I'm trying to struggle to think about like all encompassing 35 years of Quantum Leap.
I don't know how you could say that in another 2 minutes. That's all we got. I don't know. I started watching when I was 13. Watched it from the very beginning. I love the premise. I love the characters and how it solved a lot of problems, social issues, and all that kind of thing. Even at a young age, you could tell what it was doing. And got a new series now, which is even more inclusive of just everybody. They even go so far as to make crew members and cast and everything certain, religions or ethnicities or whatever what have you. So that's pretty cool. Even the music, in some of them is definitely deliberate to include all different ranges of things. So it's pretty cool. 35 years of that, I could go for another.
I agree. All that stuff and more. Started watching when I was a kid when it first came on, and have been a fan ever since. And I just loved it. I love Scott. I love Dean. I love the new show. I love everything about it. I love learning moral lessons. I love learning about what it's like to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. And I think the new show really exemplifies that. And I'm a big fan of all of the Quantum Leaps. And got to meet Scott Bakula. So now I join that small club of all you guys that met Scott before.
Yes.
So now I met Scott. So that was one of the highlights of my life. And the fact that my daughter Serenity was there with me made it even better. So Scott and Serenity got to talk about their favorite episodes. And Yep, there she is. And they were talking about Catch a Falling Star. So that was very cool.
Great.
Scott was very kind and nice and giving, and it just another example of how awesome Quantum Leap is. So for Brian Green and Albie, we want to say happy 35th anniversary to Quantum Leap.
35th.
And check us out on the quantumleappodcast.com. Al's Place - what is it?
quantumleap-alsplace.com.
Yeah, it's just one of my favorites. I click on my favorites, so I don't type it in every time. So yeah, check that out. Also, go to the forums, meet people. So many Quantum Leap fans there. It's a great place to talk, chat, and just learn about Quantum Leap. I love it. And thank you, Stacie and Dave, for having us on. And we just appreciate the opportunity to say hi and help celebrate Quantum Leap with everybody. So for the Quantum Leap podcast and Quantum Leap podcast after show, I'm Albie.
I'm Serenity.
And I'm Brian.
And check us out. We're in all the places. Link down below. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Trying to explain what Quantum Leap means to me is like trying to explain what breathing means to me. Quantum Leap wasn't the first time travel story that I loved, but it was the show that really locked in my love for the genre. I'm not joking when I say I think in time travel terms. I think in non-linear narrative storytelling terms, in what I do creatively, in just how I look at and how I approach life in a strange way, in my mental health journey as a human being, as a parent. It's just mentally how I approach things. There's a reason why my platform is called Dad to the Future. And beyond simply time travel as a storytelling device, there's something very specific about Quantum Leap that it took me over 20 years to realize why I identified with it so much. In almost every episode of the classic series, you have Sam, someone who is a literal genius. They have, 6 degrees. They speak so many languages. They are a rock star in their own world. But every single episode, Sam gets thrown into a situation where he makes a fool out of himself. He embarrasses himself. But ultimately, he saves the day in part by tapping in to his values and tapping into who he really is. I grew up as a misfit, constantly picked on, teased, and later in life come to realize a lot of that it comes from being neurodivergent, ADHD with a little autism sprinkles on top, basically. So very often out in public, socially, I always felt frustrated that I could not tap into the person who I knew I was up here inside my head, or who I was at home or around the friends and family that I trusted the most. And though I know the creators never intended it Sam Beckett's story, episode after episode, was a metaphor for that. And it's something that I needed to see, the trying, the failing, but ultimately succeeding and persevering in being who you needed to be, being who you were, being who you truly are, and that being enough. And I have been lucky to meet and forge relationships with other folks in the fandom over the last few years. And while I don't know your all's story on a deep level, just interacting with you on social media, I get the sense that our stories have a lot of overlap. And I really don't have a witty way to end this. You know, when recording this right now, we don't know if we're going to get a third season of the new show or not. And if we don't, I just hope that the fandom still finds a way to keep coming together online and sharing our love for the show and the love for the time travel genre in general.
Amada Anderson and Damon Sugamelli got engaged this past summer and didn't initially want to get married until later this year. But when they realized a leap day was approaching, they, leaped at the chance to tie the knot on February 29th.
We were talking to our parents and everybody was like, it's too soon to get people to fly over there and it's too cold.
And it's a Monday.
So we were like, well, we still want the dates.
Part of the reason is they're a bit obsessed with time. The time travel show Quantum Leap brought them together.
He awoke to find himself in the past.
When they have a bigger, more formal wedding later this year, time travel will be its theme.
Like, wouldn't it be perfect since Quantum Leap, the TV show, brought us together and then we got married on Leap Day because it's Quantum Leap.
Yeah, and it's a special day.
It's every year.
And we'll do something special.
And then we realized, as we looked at the calendar, we're like, wait, it's next year. And it's like, wait, it's too early to tell everybody to try to get everybody together. So we're actually having 2 weddings. We did it officially today so we could have the date. And then in October 29th, we're going to have a big time travel themed wedding.
So everybody here that kind of leap forward for us to that day.
Yes.
And you started dating 5 years ago?
Yes.
And you bonded over the relationship blossomed, part because of Quantum Leap, but for the time that you found the fan letters.
Oh, I used to write love letters. Scott Bakula was my first love. I was like 9. I was writing fan fiction to Scott Bakula. I went to the public library, I found his address in California, and I wrote to both of them, and he sent me a postcard. I was like, let's go and stay at my house. And then when I was comparing the love letters to him, he goes, well, I wrote fan fiction for the show. And I was a writer, and I'm an actress and a singer, so I was like, creative? Oh my gosh, this is so cool.
I'm a writer, she's the actress.
Hey, this is John Irons, host of Captain Gameshow and the occasional guest on the Quantum Leap After Show with LB. Wishing Quantum Leap a happy 35th anniversary. Thank you to the creators of the show, old and new, for reminding us that the world could always be a little bit better place, and that it's up to us to do our part to make it that way.
Hello, fellow Leapers. Happy 35th anniversary of Quantum Leap. My name is Deb, and I'm from Canada. Thank you so much to Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell for their amazing talents. They gave us so much, it continues on for years. Their dream is still alive. I also want to thank all those who have contributed to the sites of Quantum Leap. The moderators and administrators, you do a great job. We appreciate you. Thank you to the production team, the cast and crew of all the episodes. My favorite is Catch a Falling Star. It shows the extremely talented ability of all those involved. I love to hear Scott Bakula sing. I love the comic and dramatic episodes. Dean Stockwell, you're amazing. We miss you. Thank you again. Take care. God bless. Happy leaping.
Hi, I'm John. Quantum Leap will always and forever be my favorite show. I've loved it since I was conscious. I don't remember a time without it, actually. My dad taped episodes when I was young, and I have stacks and stacks of old VHSs that I just can't get rid of. Despite the fact that I have the show on DVD, I have the show on Blu-ray, it's streaming everywhere, and of course this new revival is excellent. Take a look at my car. I've got 2 bumper stickers from the show. I've got a couple of shirts, and even last year I dressed as Al for Phoenix Comic-Con. So Quantum Leap yesterday, Quantum Leap today, Quantum Leap forever. Leap on, leapers.